Chapter 1. Buddy was a dog with a big heart. He lived with Jack, his owner, in a small house near the park. Every morning, Jack would wake up and open the door for Buddy. Buddy would wag his tail happily and run outside to greet the day.
"Good morning, Buddy.
Jack would say, smiling.
Let's go for our walk."
Buddy would bark excitedly. He loved the walks with Jack. They would walk to the park where Buddy could run and play. Jack would throw a ball and Buddy would chase it, always bringing it back to Jack. They were best friends, and every day was a new adventure. At home, Buddy would rest by Jack's feet, lying on the rug while Jack worked or watched TV. Jack always made sure Buddy had food, water, and a warm bed. Buddy always made sure Jack was happy too. They understood each other, and their love for each other was clear in every moment. In the evenings, they would sit together, watching the sunset from their porch. Jack would often talk to Buddy about his dreams and worries, and Buddy would listen, his eyes full of understanding. Jack felt like Buddy was more than just a pet. He was family. Sometimes they would visit the beach where Buddy loved to run on the sand, barking at the waves. Jack would laugh, feeling grateful for their simple, happy life. Everything felt perfect. But one winter morning, things started to change. The air felt colder, and Buddy noticed Jack seemed different. It was the beginning of a season that would test their bond like never before. Chapter 2. Buddy woke up early, as usual, but today felt different. Jack was still in bed. He hadn't moved, and Buddy felt a strange sadness in his heart. Jack had always been an early riser, and they would start their day together. But today, Jack was still asleep. Buddy jumped onto the bed and licked Jack's face. "Jack, wake up!" Buddy barked softly. But Jack didn't wake up. He didn't move. Buddy nudged him with his nose, but Jack just lay there, his eyes closed. "Jack," Buddy whined, his voice full of concern. Jack slowly opened his eyes and smiled weakly.
"It's okay, Buddy.
He whispered.
I'm just tired today."
But Buddy could see that Jack didn't look like himself. He looked pale, and his face was full of worry. Buddy lay down beside Jack, not leaving his side. He felt something wasn't right, but he didn't know what it was. Later that day, Jack's friends came to visit. They were worried when they saw how weak Jack looked.
"Jack, you need to go to the hospital,"
one of them said, looking at Buddy with a sad expression.
"You're not getting better."
Jack nodded slowly, but Buddy could see that he didn't want to leave the house.
"I'll be okay, Buddy.
Jack said softly.
I'll be back soon."
Buddy didn't understand. Why would Jack leave? Where would he go? He sat by the door, waiting for Jack to come back. But Jack didn't return that night. Chapter 3. Days passed, and Buddy waited. He spent most of his time sitting by the door, watching for Jack. But Jack never came home. Every time the door opened, Buddy ran to see if it was Jack, but it wasn't. Jack's friends came to visit again, but this time they didn't have good news.
Buddy,
One of them said gently,
Jack is very sick. He might not come back.
Buddy's tail stopped wagging. He didn't want to believe it. He barked and ran to the door, waiting for Jack to come in. But Jack didn't come.
Jack loved you so much, Buddy.
His friend said softly.
He always wanted the best for you.
Buddy didn't understand why Jack wasn't there anymore. He felt lost. His heart ached, and he didn't know what to do. Jack had always been there, and now he was gone. Buddy went to the park alone, but he didn't play. He didn't chase the ball or run after other dogs. He just walked around the park, sniffing the air, hoping to smell Jack. But there was no smell of Jack, only the cold, empty air. As the days grew colder, Buddy's routine stayed the same. He would wait by the door in the morning, his ears perking up at every sound. But disappointment always followed. In the evenings, he lay on Jack's rug, his head resting on his paws, eyes fixed on the empty chair Jack used to sit in. The house felt different, too quiet and too big. Buddy missed the sound of Jack's voice and the warmth of his laughter. He missed their walks, the gentle pats on his head, and the way Jack would talk to him like they shared secrets. One evening, Jack's friend came back, bringing a blanket that smelled like Jack. "I thought you might like this, Buddy," he said, placing it on the rug. Buddy sniffed it and curled up, feeling a bit of comfort. The scent was familiar, and for a moment it felt like Jack was still with him. Outside, the snow started to fall, covering the world in white. Buddy watched it through the window, his eyes full of longing. Deep down, he held on to hope that one day the door would open and Jack would walk in again. Until then, he waited, loyal and patient, for his best friend to come home. Jack's friends came to the house. They were carrying a small box, their eyes red from crying. Buddy didn't understand. Why was everyone so sad? One of them knelt down to Buddy's level, voice soft and trembling.
Buddy,
He said,
Jack is gone. He's not coming back.
Buddy's ears drooped and his tail stilled. He sniffed the air, searching for a familiar scent that wasn't there. Confusion turned to a hollow ache as he stared at the door, waiting for Jack to come through it. But the door remained closed. Later, Buddy lay down on the grass under their favorite tree, his eyes fixed on the horizon, searching for a familiar scent that was never come. The wind rustled through the branches, carrying distant sounds, but none of them held Jack's voice. The world felt different, emptier. At night, Buddy returned home and curled up on the rug where Jack used to sit. The silence of the house wrapped around him, heavy and cold. Each empty room whispered memories of his friend. He closed his eyes, listening for the echoes of the past, hoping that in his dreams Jack would still be there, calling his name for one last walk. Chapter 5. Buddy started to walk around the town every day. He didn't know where he was going, but he couldn't stay in the house anymore. The empty rooms made him feel even more alone. Jack, Jack, Buddy would bark as he walked down the street. He would stop at every corner, hoping to see Jack, but Jack wasn't there. One evening, as the sun set, Buddy walked through the streets. He passed the park where he and Jack had played so many times, but it wasn't the same without Jack. Buddy kept walking, his paws tapping on the pavement. He didn't know where he was going, but he couldn't stop. Maybe Jack would be waiting for him around the corner. Maybe Jack would come back and call his name. But Buddy didn't find Jack. Chapter 6. One afternoon, as Buddy was walking down a quiet street, dark clouds began to gather in the sky. The wind picked up, and Buddy's fur blew in the gusts. He didn't mind the storm. It was just the weather. But he felt a little cold and tired. Jack? Where are you? Buddy whispered to himself. His heart ached with the thought of Jack, and the storm made him feel even more alone. The rain started to fall, heavy and fast. Buddy didn't go back to the house. He just walked on, his paws tapping against the wet ground. He wanted to find Jack. He wanted to find his best friend. But the storm grew stronger. The wind howled and the rain came down in sheets. Buddy couldn't see clearly, and his fur was soaking wet. He kept walking, his body tired and weak. He didn't know how much longer he could go on. Finally, Buddy stopped walking. His legs gave out and he collapsed onto the wet ground. The storm raged around him, but Buddy didn't care anymore. He closed his eyes, and for the first time in days, he felt a sense of peace. Buddy wasn't alone. He was with Jack in his heart, and no matter where he was, no matter how far they were apart, Buddy knew that Jack would always be with him. The rain continued to fall, but Buddy didn't feel the cold. He didn't feel the pain. He was finally at rest. Chapter 7. The next morning, the storm had passed, and the sun was shining again. People found Buddy lying in the street, his fur wet, but his face calm. They didn't know who he was, but they could see that he had been loved.
Poor dog.
Someone said softly.
He must have been lost.
Buddy had never been lost. He had always known where his heart was, and even though he was gone, his love for Jack remained. Jack's friends came to the street when they heard. They stood quietly for a moment, remembering the loyal dog who had waited for his friend, even when there was no hope. Buddy was not just a dog. He was Jack's best friend, and he had loved him until the very end. Now, Buddy was finally free from the pain of waiting, but his love would always be remembered. Thank you for listening. What do you think about this story? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share for more interesting stories in the future. Listen to stories, improve your English, and nurture a more beautiful soul.